In our headlines on this Monday, November 11th, here in South Korea. President Yoon Suk-yeol presides over a government meeting that calls for strategic action on the trade front in light of a second Trump administration of potentially tougher tariffs. Meanwhile, Bitcoin races past the $80,000 mark for the first time during trade this past Sunday, before closing the day at slightly below that high amid optimism over a second Trump administration. And the 29th UN Climate Summit begins today in Azerbaijan, with discussions until next Friday focus on a fresh financial commitment aimed at assisting developing nations address the adverse consequences of climate change. We begin at the top office, where officials gathered earlier on Sunday to address the possible impact of a Trump administration on bilateral trade and regional security. Oh Soo-young starts us off.
Preparing for the return of Donald Trump to the White House next year, South Korea's top office will launch an economic council and swiftly engage with the incoming Trump administration to cooperate on pressing bilateral issues. On Sunday, President Yoon Suk-yeol convened his top policy aides to review South Korea's economic and security situation amid external changes.
미국 대선이 끝났고 2달 후면은 새 행정부가 출범합니다. 워싱턴에 새 행정부가 출범을 하고 또 새로운 정책 기조가 정해지면 세계 경제와 안보에 상당히 많은 변화가 있게 됩니다. 이에 따라서 우리 경제와 안보에도 직간접으로 많은 영향을 미치게 되는 만큼 여러 가지 치밀한 준비가 필요합니다.
To brace for the economic impact, Yoon first called for an immediate launch of a consultative body on finance, trade and industry, headed by the Deputy Prime Minister. During his campaign, President-elect Trump pledged to slap tariffs of more than 60% on Chinese goods and 10 to 20% on imports from countries other than China to encourage production in America. Based on its analysis of Trump's campaign pledges, Yoon's office says it is considering all possibilities. A senior official told reporters that if the US imposes general tariffs, it could weaken the competitiveness of US products. However, depending on the scope of the tariffs, there could also be opportunities to collaborate with Seoul.
U.S. officials and Congress are well aware that South Korean firms contribute significantly to the revival of American manufacturing and job creation through large-scale investment. We believe they will recognize it is important for our firms to operate smoothly in the U.S. market.
He said the government will also work with the private sector to identify US interests and corporate needs in industries like shipbuilding. In a phone call last week with President Yoon, President-elect Trump first raised the need for cooperation with South Korea in the shipbuilding sector. South Korea also intends to engage with incoming Trump officials to align Seoul and Washington's policies on diplomacy and security, according to Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Tae-ho.
Through the South Korea-US alliance, we can strengthen deterrence against North Korea while navigating global geopolitical and geo-economic competition together. By deepening defense and defense industry cooperation and creating synergies in advanced industries and technology, we aim to expand our leadership to promote peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region.
Kim said Seoul will also continue to deepen the allies' trilateral cooperation with Japan to deter North Korea and jointly tackle regional security and economic challenges. Amid concerns over the president-elect's push for South Korea to pay more for American boots on the ground, an official told reporters South Korea will explain that their deals on defense cost-sharing have always served their mutual benefit. Seoul covered 90% of the costs of building Camp Humphreys, America's largest base overseas. On whether South Korea would seek its own nuclear deterrent to build leverage, the official said Seoul is focusing on alliance-based deterrence with Washington, and an independent nuclear weapon is a matter of consideration in only extreme scenarios. Going forward, Yoon's office plans to launch a security economic cooperation program that enhances the strengths and competitiveness of both countries in supply chains, advanced technology and future industries, so that South Korean and US citizens and firms can benefit from more jobs and opportunities. 오수영, Arirang News.
Also, government officials and ruling party lawmakers and medical practitioners have launched their first joint platform to address the prolonged standoff over medical school admissions. The task force, however, lacks the support of opposition lawmakers and some key medical groups. Our Kim Do-yeon explains.
A potential turning point in the ongoing standoff between the government and doctors. On Monday, the ruling People Power Party, some medical associations, and the government kicked off a consultative body at the National Assembly pledging to yield results by the end of the year.
Despite the conflict and deadlock, we believe we've finally found a breakthrough. For the first time since the medical crisis began, the government and the medical community have come together in front of the public to resolve the issue. It's a delayed but significant step forward.
But the group faces hurdles as it's missing key pieces. The opposition parties did not join as some key medical organizations opted out of the initiative. The key medical organizations, Korea Interns and Residents Association and the Korea Medical Association, won't join unless the government starts the medical reform plan from scratch, including canceling the medical school enrollment quota expansion, which has already been set for the upcoming application season. People Power Party Chair Han Do-hoon called on them to start the discussion first.
The Korean Academy of Medical Sciences and KAMC, which oversee the training and education of medical residents and students, are taking the lead in gathering and addressing the medical community's demands through open communication and the consultative body. With broader participation from the medical field, we believe more effective and swift agreements can be reached.
The medical associations that did join the group said it was only due to the urgency of the situation from the current halt in medical education and the strain on the medical infrastructure.
If the government and ruling party fail to show genuine commitment, the conflict will never be resolved. This time, we hope they approach the situation with a sense of urgency and a true willingness to find a solution.
Prime Minister Han Duck-soo said the medical reform isn't just about raising the medical school student quota. It's also about improving the working conditions for doctors in the country.
The government's medical reform is a comprehensive strategy aimed at transforming the foundation and paradigm of our medical system. It reflects the government's commitment to protecting the public and building a sustainable, high-quality healthcare system.
Meanwhile, the group is set to meet twice a week. The key issue at hand is the return of interns and residents across the nation. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
In other news, Bitcoin raced past the $80,000 mark for the first time during trade this past Sunday before closing the day at slightly below that high. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
After surpassing $75,000 on the news of Donald Trump's U.S. presidential election victory last week, Bitcoin continued to soar over the weekend, reaching yet another all-time high. On Sunday, the price of Bitcoin surpassed $80,000 for the first time and briefly surpassed $80,500 on Binance before dipping down below the $80,000 mark. The price of Bitcoin, as well as the cryptocurrency market as a whole, has been on the rise as the president-elect promised to ease regulations on virtual currencies during his campaign. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden and the president-elect are set to meet at the White House later this week. The two, who squared off during the 2020 U.S. presidential election, will sit down for talks on Wednesday. Such meetings are customary between the outgoing leader and the incoming president and are often considered the start of a peaceful transfer of power, something Biden promised last week. However, after the 2020 U.S. presidential election, which saw Biden defeat Trump, who was the president at the time, did not host Biden for talks at the White House. The White House said Biden called Trump last Wednesday to congratulate him on his win and invited him to the Oval Office. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Back here on the local front, exports during the first 10 days of November fell on year, owing to fewer working days. According to the Korea Customs Service on this Monday, the value of exports dropped 17.8% to $14.9 billion. Officials are linking the latest finding to fewer working days, with the first 10 days of this November including just 6 working days, while last November saw 8 working days. With regard to prospects for the whole month, officials remained optimistic, forecasting export expansion, which has been the trend for the past 13 months. By sector, outbound shipments of semiconductors and ships surged, while those for cars and petroleum products sank. The 29th UN Climate Summit begins today in Azerbaijan with broad discussions until next Friday, amid uncertainty over the fate of climate action by the US under a second Trump administration. Our foreign affairs correspondent Peunji reports.
This year, 2024, is on track to be the hottest on record. It could also be the first year to exceed the Paris Agreement threshold, which aims to keep global warming under 1.5 degrees Celsius.
15 of the past 16 months have broken temperature records. And today, the World Meteorological Organization and partners tell us that 2024 is on track to be the hottest year ever recorded, almost 2 months before it ends.
To address climate change, officials from almost 200 countries have gathered in Azerbaijan to take part in the United Nations Annual Climate Summit, the COP29. From South Korea, a delegation led by the Minister of Environment, Kim Won-seop, will take part. The climate talks come as U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, a so-called climate denier, is set to return to the White House. The New York Times said Trump is preparing to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. He earlier pulled the United States out of the deal during his first term, before Biden rejoined the agreement.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord, so we're getting out. But we will start to negotiate, and we will see if we can make a deal that's fair. And if we can, that's great. And if we can't, that's fine.
This year's climate meeting is expected to be focused on how much financial support should be given annually to help developing countries cope with climate-related costs. During a COP summit in 2010, developed countries agreed to mobilize $100 billion per year by 2020. But countries failed to meet the goal on time, and in 2015, the goal was extended until 2025. However, with the possibility of the U.S. withdrawing from the Paris Agreement again, there are a lot of uncertainties and concerns remaining on this issue.
With this election result, we really get very concerned that all the talks are now going to be what will happen in the absence of the US, and the US not meeting its finance goal or even reversing some of the mitigation policies that Biden administration brought. That is going to be at the heart of the conversation at COP29.
The COP29 is scheduled to take place until November 22nd, and all eyes are now on whether countries will be able to agree on a new global climate finance target for 2025 and onwards. Peunji, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, Israeli strikes targeting militants across Gaza and Syria this past weekend have led to dozens of deaths, according to local media. An Israeli air raid on a residential building in the Syrian town of Sayyida Zainab killed 7 civilians and injured 20 others. Now, this town was also targeted by Israel last week in an assault that the latter claims struck Hezbollah intelligence assets. Also on Sunday, Israel hit a building sheltering displaced civilians in the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza. At least 30 Palestinians were killed, including 13 children. Meanwhile, the presence of North Korean troops alongside their Russian counterparts amid the latter's invasion of Ukraine has pundits here pondering over the motives and implications of the deployment for the regime. Our Kim Jung-shil covers their thoughts.
The Russian military has assembled a force of 50,000 soldiers, including North Korean troops, as it prepares to launch an assault on Ukrainian positions in the contested Kursk region, according to the New York Times on Sunday, citing U.S. and Ukrainian officials. CNN reported that the attack on Kursk could occur within the next few days. In a fight between Russia and Ukraine, what's at stake for North Korean soldiers?
They are likely willing to take the risk of potentially sacrificing their lives because, by being deployed abroad, they see it as a chance to solve issues like food shortages or to receive at least minimal welfare benefits.
Professor Im pointed out that this paradoxically proves how harsh the conditions are in the North Korean military.
The soldiers who have been deployed are likely the best trained and most ideologically committed. This is why they probably believe that by showing loyalty to leader Kim Jong-un, they will be rewarded with proper economic compensation.
Experts also suggested that soldiers' families may be unaware their sons were sent to Russia, as the deployment was likely mandated by the party rather than voluntary.
Kim Jong-un has always presented himself as a leader who cares for his people. Sending soldiers to war without national or parental consent is likely to upset many. This could weaken the stability of his regime in the long run.
Dr. Yang added that Kim may create a narrative such as framing the deployment as a fight against the U.S. or a move to strengthen ties with Russia to maintain control if troop numbers and casualties rise, as it will be increasingly difficult to conceal. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
In related news, a fierce trade of fire took place between Russia and Ukraine this past weekend, while U.S. President-elect Donald Trump reportedly spoke against an escalation of this ongoing war. Our Choi Soo-young has the latest.
Russia and Ukraine targeted each other over the weekend, with the largest number of drone attacks since Moscow invaded the Eastern European country. On Sunday local time, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claimed on social media that 145 Russian drones launched nationwide on Saturday night were mostly shot down. The authorities there said at least 2 people were injured in the port city of Odessa. The Ukrainian Air Force Command said that 62 of Russia's Shahed and other strike drones were shot down, where 67 were lost and 10 were seen leaving Ukrainian airspace toward Belarus, Moldova and Russia. Russia's defense ministry said on the same day it had intercepted 84 Ukrainian drones, including Moscow-bound UAVs. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin reported on Sunday that dozens of Ukrainian drones headed for Moscow had been shut down, while flights at 3 of Moscow's airports had been temporarily suspended. The defense ministry said that 5 people were injured and there was some infrastructure damage. Meanwhile, President-elect Donald Trump spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin on the phone on November 7th, a day after his re-election as the U.S. president. According to the Washington Post on Sunday, Trump urged not to escalate the war in Ukraine, reminding Putin of Washington's sizable military presence in Europe. It is reported that the two discussed peace on the European continent, and Trump showed interest in further talks to resolve the war in Ukraine. Trump claimed during his campaign that he could end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours after taking office, but did not mention any specific plans. Since his election, Trump has held a series of phone calls with foreign leaders. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
Capital Seoul is currently hosting its annual Culinary Festival this week. The event runs through Thursday, that is November 14th, and features a wide array of programs. One highlight includes over 100 of the city's popular restaurants offering exclusive dishes at affordable costs. Also, young chefs from the Netflix show Culinary Class Wars are sharing creative collaborations of Seoul's iconic street food. The festival aims to raise Seoul through the ranks of the global foodie destinations. And Korea's annual shopping festival is underway until the end of this month, with online and offline retailers offering some of the best bargains of the year. Our business correspondent Lee Soo-jin files this report.
Shoppers in South Korea are anticipated to save big at the largest shopping event of the year. The Korea Sale Festa, often compared to Black Friday in the US, kicked off on Friday with a record 2,600 businesses participating in the event. And consumers are more than ready to shop at more affordable prices.
It's colder because it's the end of the year, but prices are high, so I want to buy clothes at cheaper price through the Korea Sale Festa.
Now in its 9th year, the government hopes that this nationwide event will revitalize sluggish domestic demand. Retail sales, which indicate trends in goods consumption, declined by 0.4% month-on-month in September after seeing a rise in August and fell 2.2% year-on-year.
The economy as a whole is not doing well because domestic demand is weak. So events like the Korea Sale Festa benefit not only consumers, but also businesses.
Both online and offline retailers are offering large discounts in hopes of boosting sales.
We believe that the 2024 Korea Sale Festa will increase sales from both domestic and foreign customers.
This year, major supermarkets are focusing on fruits and vegetables such as key kimchi ingredients. And the nation's top e-commerce platforms like Coupang and Gmarket are hosting their own sales, while online grocery service Market Kurly and food delivery app Baemin are participating for the first time this year. Another first are promotions by resorts and theme parks. There are also larger discounts on more car models, as Hyundai Motor is offering up to 5 million won, or around $3,600 across 24 models, including selected EVs. Home appliance deals are also bigger, with special deals from Samsung Electronics and LG Electronics for TVs and steam closets. As the event will be held until the 30th, shoppers will have plenty of time to find bargain prices for a wide variety of items, boosting sales and subsequently stimulating the nation's economy as a whole. 이수진, Arirang News.
Over in the UK this past Sunday, K-pop artists garnered awards at the 2024 MTV Europe Music Awards in Manchester. K-pop girl group Blackpink's Lisa won 2 awards, including Best Collaboration for the song New Woman with pop star Rosalia. She also clinched the Biggest Fans Award. Boy band BTS's member Jimin received the Best K-pop award, which bandmate Jungkook took home last year. Meanwhile, pop star Taylor Swift was the most awarded artist at the ceremony with a total of 4.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. In Pakistan, a suicide bombing at a train station in the country's southwest Balochistan province killed at least 26 people and left some 50 injured on Saturday. According to Reuters, the Balochistan Liberation Army, a militant group seeking independence from Pakistan's Balochistan province, claimed responsibility for the attack. The BLA said the attack targeted soldiers at the railway station. However, the bomb detonated while around 100 passengers were waiting at the platform. Attacks by the BLA have surged in the past year, with many of them directed at soldiers and Chinese nationals in the region. The Rubik's Cube, a 3D puzzle recognized worldwide for its 43 quintillion possible combinations, celebrated its 50th anniversary on Saturday. Its Hungarian inventor Erno Rubik, who turned 80 this year, created the puzzle in 1974 while he was a lecturer of design at a university in Budapest as a teaching tool for a better understanding of mathematics. Now Rubik patented and licensed the design to a US toy company in 1979 before it exploded into a global craze with some 500 million units sold worldwide. An 88-year-old Greek man showed that age is just a number on Sunday as he finished the 41st Athens Marathon, the Authentic, in 6 hours and 31 minutes. Plutarchos Poliakas, who ran this year's race 18 minutes faster than last year, crossed the finishing line to cheers from his family. Poliakas, who said he was inspired by his son, began running at the age of 73 and has run 12 full marathons. He said his routine includes runs of 4 to 5 kilometers per day and up to 20 kilometers on the weekends, adding that he feels younger than his 88 years. Kim Xiang, Arirang News.
It was chilly in the morning but mild in the day. The highest temperature during the day rose to 21 degrees Celsius in Seoul and 23 degrees in Busan, far exceeding the average temperatures. For the rest of the week, the weather will continue to be milder than usual, but with large daily temperature differences. However, from tonight, the atmosphere will stagnate and smoke will gradually flow in. Tomorrow, the Seoul metropolitan area, the Chungcheongdo provinces, and Jeollabuk-do province will see bad levels of ultrafine dust concentration throughout the day. Tomorrow, Seoul will start off at 11 degrees, Daejeon and Gyeongju 9 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 18 in Seoul and Chuncheon, Daegu, Gyeongju, and Jeju 20 degrees. On Thursday, the day of the National College Entrance Exam, it is expected to rain across the country from the afternoon. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session. Do stay with us.